This is the VOA Special English Education Report. Since the 1990s, education has been required for all South Africans from age 7 to 15. Last December, the government announced that 70% of students passed their final examination to finish high school. In 2008, the passage rate was about 63%. There have been increases each year since then. Professor Shireen Motala at the University of Johannesburg says access to basic education is no longer the problem in South Africa. She says most children stay in school until they are about 16. The problem now, she says, is that large numbers of them leave without completing high school. Students take an examination known as the matric in grade 12, their final or matriculation year. But Professor Matala says only around 45% of the children who started school in 2000 sat for the matric last year. South Africa has a 24% unemployment rate. Those who drop out must compete with better educated people for jobs. Educational researchers also point to another problem. They say South African schools do not produce enough students with the skills for higher education in math and science. Researcher Graham Block says many schools are not well equipped. The reality of poverty, he says, is that many children do not see laboratories or libraries at school. 92% of the schools do not have libraries. Also, education specialists say in many cases, teachers and school principals do not have the skills or training to do their jobs. In other cases, they are simply not doing their duty to provide an education. Professor Matala says a number of teachers were poorly trained during the system of apartheid or racial separation in South Africa. Apartheid ended in 1994. Secondly, she says, teachers have been confused by the many educational reform efforts in the last 15 years. And finally, she thinks language differences in the classroom have not gotten as much attention as they should. Subjects such as math and science are taught in English, starting at about age 10. But South Africa has 11 official languages and many more unofficial ones. South Africa's Minister of Basic Education promises a number of improvements. Andri Matshega says teacher development efforts will focus on subject and content knowledge and making sure the correct teachers are in the correct jobs. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Prasuti.
This is the VOA Special English Education Report. 26,000 foreign exchange students are in American high schools this year. We asked 4 teenagers who arrived in August to discuss their experience so far. All but one are attending public schools in Fairfax County, Virginia, outside Washington. Johanna is from Germany. She says the biggest difference is the relationship to the teachers. She says here the teachers are more like friends, and in Germany they're more like parents. Another difference? In American high schools, the students are usually the ones who move to different classrooms for different subjects. Johanna and Daniel come from schools where the teachers change classrooms. Daniel says, in Austria, you have all classes together with the same group of people, and so you are really good friends with all the people you're in class with. Hande from Turkey is living with a host family in Denver, Colorado. She says students in Turkish schools have less choice. She says, you cannot choose your own classes, and you don't have the right to drop out of one of them. Hande says Turkish schools are also more formal. She says, when a teacher comes into the class, you have to stand up and greet the teacher. He or she says good morning or good afternoon, and as a class, you answer. We don't do this in class here. How does the education compare? Hande is in 3 advanced placement classes, which are meant to prepare students for college. She says AP courses are really hard, and they really force you to learn and are really good. But the regular classes, their level is lower than in Turkey. Rosa is from a country where high school is 5 years, not 4 like in America. She says, in Italy, we go to school only during the morning for lessons, and Italian schools don't have other activities. On the other hand, she says, having to go elsewhere for activities is not necessarily a bad thing. She says she thinks students in Italy and Europe have a freer environment. They are in touch with a lot of different things that are outside the school. And that's the VOA Special English Education Report. To learn more about high school exchange programs, go to voaspecialenglish.com. You can also comment on this and other programs. And you can find us on YouTube and Twitter at VOA Learning English. This is the VOA Special English Education Report. Today, we answer a question from a listener in Colombia. John Anderson wants to know the costs of undergraduate and graduate study in the United States. Well, the first thing to know is that prices are different from school to school. Private colleges and universities generally cost more than public ones. Another thing to keep in mind is that not all students pay a school's published price. Financial aid and scholarships may reduce the cost. Here are a few numbers for this school year from the College Board Organization. The average published price for undergraduate study at a 4-year public college was about $7,000. That was for students from in-state. Students from other states, as well as international students, paid an average of more than $18,000. This is the bad news. International students often have to pay the highest prices. And these averages were only for tuition and fees. Food, housing, books, and supplies can add $10,000 to $12,000 a year. The College Board says the average tuition at a private college was about $26,000. Many students save money by starting their education at a 2-year public college, also known as a community college. The average tuition this year was about $2,500. A few American colleges provide a free education, including the military and merchant marine academies. They accept some foreign students. Berea College is a small Christian school in Berea, Kentucky, that pays all first-year costs for its foreign students. But they are expected to pay $1,000 a year after that. Summer jobs are provided to help meet this cost. Costs for graduate study in the United States also differ from school to school and even from program to program. Here, too, public universities charge more for out-of-state tuition. For example, at the University of Kentucky, out-of-state graduate tuition averaged about $18,000 this year. In-state was about $9,000. American students often have to take out loans to help pay for their education. President Obama recently signed into law a bill that changes the student loan system. We'll have more on that next week. And international students can learn much more about studying in the United States on our website. Look for the Foreign Student Series at voaspecialenglish.com. And that's the VOA Special English Education Report.
This is the VOA Special English Education Report. Teachers and parents usually call attention to the pictures when they read storybooks to preschool children. But a new study suggests that calling attention to the words and letters on the page may lead to better readers. The 2-year study compared children who were read to this way in class with children who were not. Those whose teachers most often discussed the print showed clearly higher skills in reading, spelling, and understanding. These results were found 1 year and even 2 years later. Shane Piasta, an assistant professor of teaching and learning at Ohio State University, was an author of the study. She says most preschool teachers would find this method manageable and would need only a small change in the way they teach. They already read storybooks in class. The only difference would be increased attention to the printed text. Ms. Piasta says if you get children to pay attention to letters and words, it makes sense that they will do better at word recognition and spelling. But she says research suggests that very few parents and teachers do this in a systematic way. The report appears in the journal Child Development. More than 300 children aged 4 and 5 were observed in classrooms in Ohio and Virginia. The children came from poor families and were below average in their language skills. This put them at risk for reading problems later. For 30 weeks, the children took part in a program called Project STAR, for Sit Together and Read. The project is based at Ohio State. It tests the short-term and long-term results of reading regularly to preschool children in their classrooms. Laura Justice at Ohio State says researchers think they understand how information about print is transmitted from the adult to the child. This knowledge can be gained by having focused discussions when reading a book out loud. Professor Justice says this intervention can help adults center in on the things that children need and want to learn. There are different ways that adults can talk to children about print. They can point to a letter and discuss it, and even trace the shape with a finger. They can point out a word. This is dog. They can discuss the meaning of the print or how the words tell the story. And they can talk about the organization of the print. For instance, showing how words are written left to right in English. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. You can read and listen to our programs at voaspecialenglish.com.
This is the VOA Special English Education Report. Today, we have the last of 3 reports on bullying. Last week, we shared some of your comments on this issue. Now, we talk to a researcher who presented a study in May at the Pediatric Academic Society's meeting in Vancouver, Canada. Rashmi Shetgiri is a pediatrician at the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center and Children's Medical Center, Dallas. Dr. Shetgiri said about 30% of American children are involved in bullying. She said about 13% of them are bullies, 11% are victims, and 6% are both bullies and victims. The new study led by Dr. Shetgiri shows that parents could help prevent bullying by improving communication and involvement with their children. The study identified factors that seem to increase or decrease the risk that a child will be a bully. She said children who have emotional or developmental problems or who have mothers who have poor mental health are more likely to be bullies. Older children and children who live in homes where their primary language is not English are less likely to be bullies. Another difference, the study found that African American and Latino children were more likely to be bullies compared to white children. For the study, the researchers used the 2007 National Survey of Children's Health. Parents of children aged 10 to 17 were asked whether their child bullies or is cruel or mean to others. Not surprisingly, how a parent acts may also influence whether or not a child becomes a bully. Parents who often get angry with their children and feel that the children often do things that bother them a lot are much more likely to have a child who becomes a bully. However, parents who share ideas with their children and talk with them are much less likely to have children who become bullies. University of Nebraska psychologist Susan Swearer says, communication between students and teachers can also reduce bullying. She says studies have shown improvement when students are taught about bullying and respectful behavior. Some programs also try to get people to intervene to stop bullying. Professor Swearer advises parents and teachers to try to get children to talk to them about being bullied. Otherwise, a child could feel hopeless and helpless to do anything about it. And that's the VOA Special English Education Report.
I'm Alex Villarreal with the VOA Special English Education Report. No one likes to make mistakes, but a new study says organizations learn more from their failures than their successes and keep that knowledge longer. One of the researchers was Vinit Desai, an assistant professor at the University of Colorado Denver Business School. He worked with Peter Madsen from the Marriott School of Management at Brigham Young University in Utah. They did not find much long-term organizational learning from success. It is possible, they say. But Professor Desai says they found that knowledge gained from failure lasts for years. He says organizations should treat failures as a learning opportunity and not try to ignore them. The study looked at companies and organizations that launch satellites and other space vehicles. Professor Desai compared 2 American space shuttle flights. In 2002, a piece of insulating material broke off during launch and damaged a rocket on the Atlantis. Still, the flight was considered a success. Then, in early 2003, a piece of insulation struck the Columbia during launch. This time, the shuttle broke apart on re-entry and the 7 crew members died. NASA officials suspended all flights, and an investigation led to suggested changes. Professor Desai says the search for solutions after a failure can make leaders more open-minded. He points to airlines as an example of an industry that has learned from failures in the past. He advises organizations to look for useful information in small failures and failures they avoided. The mistakes we learn from do not have to be our own. We asked people on our Facebook page to tell us a time they had done something really silly. Fabricio Semino wrote, "Not long ago, I wanted to watch TV, but it wouldn't turn on, so I did everything I could to start it. 30 minutes later, my mom shows up and, passing by, says to me, 'Did you try plugging it?' I was like, 'I'm just dusting, Mom,' so she wouldn't notice how dumb I am sometimes." Bruno Kanieski da Silva told about a time he looked everywhere for his key. It was in his pocket. He wrote, "I always promise I will never do it again. But after a few weeks, where is my wallet? For sure it will be in a very logical place." You can find more comments like these on Facebook at VOA Learning English. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal.
From VOA Learning English, this is Education. Immigration reform is a top policy goal this year in Washington. President Obama and a group of Democratic and Republican senators who have been preparing legislation agree on one thing. Millions of immigrants who are in the United States illegally will have to start learning English before they can begin the process of becoming legal residents. But school systems that face shrinking budgets are still cutting or eliminating English classes. Overcrowding is especially bad in California. That state is home to one of every 4 non-English speaking immigrants in the United States. But Margie McHugh of the Migration Policy Institute predicts a huge amount of unmet demand for English training all across the country. She says the current system is too limited. Until recently, California law provided money to be used just for adult education. But to help schools meet funding shortages, state legislators let them use that money for other programs. In Los Angeles, the adult education program has been cut by 75%. Once, the school district offered English at hundreds of neighborhood sites with day and evening classes. This year, the teaching hours will be reduced. California Governor Jerry Brown wants to take responsibility for adult education away from school districts. Their main focus is on children. He wants to give the responsibility to community colleges. Adult schools across the country are experimenting with computerized English instruction. They hope software will help substitute for the individual attention that beginning students need. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Prasuti. This is the VOA Special English Education Report. Students in Washington, D.C. returned to classrooms in August to begin a new school year. But at least 5% of their teachers did not return with them. In July, the District of Columbia Public Schools told 206 teachers that they were not good enough to stay. The school system in the nation's capital dismissed 75 teachers in 2010. It was the first year of a new teacher rating system. Experts say such large numbers of dismissals are rare in American schools. But in Washington, the rating system is not governed by the labor contract with the teachers' union. So school officials have more freedom. The system is called impact. Teachers are observed in the classroom 5 times a year for at least 30 minutes each time. They are also judged by student test scores. Administrators rated 65 of the 206 teachers as ineffective. The others lost their jobs because they were rated minimally effective for a second year. Emily Cohen at the National Council on Teacher Quality, a private research group, praises the impact system. This is an evaluation instrument that is finally able to capture who is highly effective and who is ineffective, and who could be doing better and could use some assistance. Most evaluation instruments in the country do not capture teacher performance. All teachers are rated satisfactory. Some Washington teachers say their ratings depend too heavily on test scores. For some teachers, half of their rating is based on how well their students do. But Emily Cohen says testing is probably the most objective data that we have on teacher performance. The district is also looking at other things, she says, so it's not just looking at student test performance. Teachers with the highest rating can receive a bonus of up to $25,000. In addition, they can receive a pay increase. Almost 60% of the teachers who were rated minimally effective in 2010 stayed in the school system and improved. School officials say these teachers received help to become better. The Washington Teachers Union says impact unfairly hurts teachers who work in schools with high rates of poverty. The Washington Post reported that most of the teachers with the highest rating work in schools with lower poverty rates. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. For more education news and to learn American English, go to voaspecialenglish.com.
This is the VOA Special English Education Report. John Wooden died in June at the age of 99. He was one of the greatest 20th century Americans in sports. He was an excellent college basketball player. He led Purdue University to a national championship in 1932. After college, he was a high school coach. He also taught English for 9 years. But where he really made his mark was at the University of California, Los Angeles. He was head coach of men's basketball for 27 years. His teams won a record 10 national championships. These included 7 in a row during the late 1960s and early 70s. The Bruins have won just one other championship since then. He coached famous players like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, known then as Lou Alcindor, and Bill Walton. Several years ago, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar spoke at a ceremony honoring John Wooden. He said, "Many top athletes worry that they will be exploited for their skills by their coach." But that was not the case with John Wooden. The coach was praised for how he taught the basics of the game, like passing, defense, and moving without the ball. But he also offered life lessons as a speaker and author. His books included the Self-Improvement Guide, Pyramid of Success. At a speaking event when he was already in his 90s, he explained that his father had taught him a few things about success. He said, "I was raised on a small farm in southern Indiana. Dad tried to teach me and my brothers that you should never try to be better than someone else. Always learn from others and never cease trying to be the best you can be. That's under your control." Those words later helped him with his own definition of success. He said, "Peace of mind attained only through self-satisfaction and knowing you made the effort to do your best. I believe that is true. If you make the effort to do your best, trying to improve the situation that exists for you, I think that is success, and I do not think others can judge that." His wife of 53 years, Nell, died in 1985. At UCLA, the man known simply as Coach had a record of 620 wins and 147 losses. Current coach Ben Howland calls John Wooden the greatest coach in the history of basketball. And that's the VOA Special English Education Report.
This is the VOA Special English Education Report. The International Baccalaureate Organization was founded in 1968. It works with schools in 143 countries to offer programs for students aged 13 to 19. These programs, it says, help develop the intellectual, personal, emotional, and social skills to live, learn, and work in a rapidly globalizing world. The organization says IB programs are in more than 3,000 schools. The majority of these schools offer IB diploma programs. High school students have to complete 6 courses, pass exams, and write a 20-page paper to earn an IB diploma. The courses are in humanities, science, arts, math, a second language, and their own language. Students can also attend special events. Recently, more than 300 IB diploma students from 13 countries attended a conference at the University of British Columbia in Canada. The 5-day conference was called The New Sustainability, Making Things Better, Not Just Less Bad. The students heard from professors, graduate students, activists, and others. One of the speakers was Drew Deutsch, director of IB Americas. He says the conference was meant as a way for students not only to learn about the environment, but also to develop lasting relationships. He says conference organizers want to send the students back to their schools to deal with issues related to protecting the environment. But he says they want these students to become students of the world and to form bonds with peers their own age from around the world. He adds that with social networking and other tools, these relationships can last a lifetime. 17-year-old Itzel Chavez is a student at the International School of Beaverton in the American state of Oregon. She was one of 21 IB students who received scholarships to attend the conference. She said, "I applied for a scholarship and I had to write an essay." Her school chose only one person, and she got to attend. She says the main speakers would describe a sustainability program or tell how a special project improved the environment in their community. Then the students had to choose a project to present to the conference. Itzel worked on a video. It asked students 3 questions about sustainability and how they would make it happen in their own communities. After the video, group members went on stage to tell what they themselves would do to protect the environment. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal.
I'm Carolyn Persutti with the VOA Special English Education Report. March 1st was the 50th anniversary of the Peace Corps. President John Kennedy began the program in 1961. The Peace Corps sends American volunteers to provide technical assistance in education and other areas in developing countries. Amanda Pease is one of almost 40 volunteers serving in rural schools in Sierra Leone. Ms. Pease teaches science at St. Joseph's, a high school in eastern Sierra Leone. She studied chemical engineering at the University of California, Los Angeles. She decided to serve for 2 years in the Peace Corps after she finished her degree. Peace Corps volunteers left Sierra Leone in 1994 because of civil war. But now they are back. Science teachers are in especially short supply. Efforts in Sierra Leone to get more children through primary school have led to crowded high schools. Amanda Pease is the only chemistry and physics teacher at her school. She says she has to work hard to get students more interested in learning. She says what she loves best about her experience is the magical moment when students understand a chemical process or ask her for more exercises. More than 8,000 Peace Corps volunteers are currently serving around the world. Volunteers become part of the community where they work and live. Travis Blumling from Pennsylvania teaches English in a rural Indonesian community. He says learning English and at least having some knowledge of the language can help people when they look for a job or meet people. Mr. Blumling's family expressed concern for his safety in a country where Islamic militants have sometimes attacked Westerners. But what concerned him, he says, was the thought that leaders in his village might not welcome him. But he says he could not have been more wrong. They have permitted him to enter their homes. He joined them in their Muslim meetings. He joined them while fasting. And he has even entered the mosque. In addition to Indonesia, Peace Corps volunteers in East Asia serve in China, Thailand, Cambodia, Mongolia, and the Philippines. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Prasuti. If you have a Peace Corps story to share, go to voaspecialenglish.com, or you can post a comment on our Facebook page at VOA Learning English.
This is the VOA Special English Education Report. One job of an athletic trainer is to treat injured athletes. But does it make a difference if the trainer is male or female? Sometimes, yes, if an injury or condition is a male problem or a female problem. Then athletes say they are more likely to want treatment by someone of their own sex. But what about a problem that could affect either sex, like a dislocated shoulder? Researchers at North Carolina State University asked male football players at 2 American colleges. The study found that those players would still probably choose a male trainer unless the injury made them feel depressed. Then they would most likely choose a female trainer. The researchers offer 2 possible explanations. They say football players might be seen as weak if they talk about their depression with a male trainer. Also, over half the players described female trainers with words like caring, nurturing, and affectionate. The researchers say this shows that gender stereotypes have influenced the opinions of the players about women. They say the concern is that players might see the training room as not the place even for well-qualified women. The study, led by Heidi Grappendorf, is in the Journal of Athletic Training. Trainers are an important part of an athlete's life. But an organization based in California is working with coaches to help influence boys to show more respect toward girls and women. Feroz Moideen is director of the Coaching Boys into Men program of the Family Violence Prevention Fund. He says the nonprofit organization works with police, judges, teachers, and coaches. He says the group used $1.5 million donation from the Nike Foundation to expand the program to cricket players in India. He said they used the power of cricket coaches to educate boys about healthy and respectful behavior toward women and girls. Written materials are also being provided to other countries through UNICEF, the United Nations Children's and Educational Agency. Brian O'Connor of the Family Violence Prevention Fund says young men need guidelines in how to treat young women, in person or online. He says problems include unwanted or excessive text messaging or breaking into someone's Facebook account. He says this digital dating abuse has increased through technology. And that's the VOA Special English Education Report.
This is the VOA Special English Education Report. Last week, we told you about a program that trains women in prison to start their own businesses after their release. Today, we tell you about one of the few prisons in America that offer college-level classes, San Quentin State Prison in California. Judy Lewin volunteered to teach in the college program at San Quentin in 1999. She was a graduate student. The program had a small group of volunteers and no money. But a year later, the director resigned. Miss Lewin agreed to run the program until a permanent director could be found. But once I started doing the work and got more deeply involved, I started to think more and more about what this program could become. The Prison University Project seeks to prepare men to lead thoughtful and productive lives inside and outside of prison. 20 courses are offered each semester. Classes offered this past semester included English, math, United States history, and Russian and Soviet history. Others included Asian American theater, Spanish, biology, sociology, philosophy, and criminal justice. 300 inmates take classes every semester. They earn credits toward an Associate of Arts degree in Liberal Arts from Patton University in Oakland, California. Ms. Lewin says getting teachers to volunteer is not difficult, although some are nervous about their first trip to San Quentin. She has recruited more than 150 volunteers, including graduate students from colleges and universities in the area. Charles Spence hopes to earn parole from prison one day. He needs a few more courses to receive his associate's degree, and he wants to earn a master's degree in psychology. He says, "This experience really has changed my life. It has given me a lot of tools on how to express myself. This program is really rare in the prison setting, so we are really lucky to have an opportunity to get an education, especially with the way the economy is out there now. More than 100 prisoners have received an associate's degree. Many more have continued their college studies after their release. The project receives no state or federal money. It operates with donations from people and foundations. Jody Lewin wants to keep expanding the college program at San Quentin. There is a long waiting list of prisoners who want to take classes. For VOA Special English, I'm Mario Ritter. For more programs and activities for learning English, go to voaspecialenglish.com.
I'm Alex Villarreal with the VOA Special English Education Report. The Southeast Asian English Olympics were held in February in Jakarta, Indonesia. High school and university students competed to demonstrate their English skills at the Anggrek campus of BINUS University. The Bina Nusantara English Club at the university started the English Olympics in 2005. The yearly competition was formerly known as the Nationwide English Olympics. This year, the club invited other Southeast Asian schools to send ambassadors to join students from Indonesia. The organizers hoped to have 400 or more students take part. There were 6 areas of competition. One was based on Scrabble. This is the board game where players try to form words from letters with different point values. Other areas of the competition included speech, storytelling, and newscasting. Students were judged on their ability to present the news. Johannes Napis is the 20-year-old chief executive officer of the Olympics. He says the biggest event was the debate competition, which included international judges. He says the competition used the British parliamentary system, but debaters could use either British or American English. Organizers of the Southeast Asian English Olympics got support from the American Embassy in Jakarta and VOA. The finals took place February 19th in a new high-tech American Cultural Center called At America. It opened in December in the Pacific Place Mall in Jakarta. 100 Indonesian high school students came to the At America Center. They chose their favorite entry in the 6th area of competition, short movie making. But adult judges chose the winners of the gold, silver, and bronze medals. Johannes Napis says the Southeast Asian English Olympics might expand next year into the Asian English Olympics. He said people from Bangladesh and China wanted to take part in the Southeast Asian English Olympics, but they could not accept them. So, he thinks they have a good chance of expanding the competition into other parts of Asia next year. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. Our programs are online with transcripts and MP3 files at voaspecialenglish.com. You can also comment on this and other stories. And you can find us on Facebook at VOA Learning English.
This is the VOA Special English Education Report. We had a question from China, from a listener who wanted to know about John Dewey. John Dewey was an influential thinker and educator. The New York Times once called him America's philosopher. Larry Hickman is director of the Center for Dewey Studies at Southern Illinois University, Carbondale. He was not surprised that the question came from China. Mr. Hickman told us he just returned from 2 weeks of meetings in Beijing in December. He and Chinese educators discussed the close relationship between Dewey's ideas and those of Confucius. He also worked with a group of Buddhists who like Dewey's work very much because it goes along with some of the ideas of Mahayana Buddhism. John Dewey described his ideas in books including Democracy and Education, The School and Society, and How We Think. Mr. Hickman said Dewey was perhaps the best-known philosopher, educator, and public intellectual of the 20th century. He was active in many fields, including education, philosophy, psychology, and humanistic and humanitarian affairs. He was an important influence in the founding of the American Association of University Professors and the American Civil Liberties Union. He was also influential in the founding of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, although he himself was white. John Dewey was born in Burlington, Vermont in 1859. He was influenced by the scientific work of Charles Darwin. He was also influenced by the work done with immigrant English learners in Chicago by Jane Addams. She was a social worker and the first American woman to win the Nobel Peace Prize. And Dewey was influenced by observing his own children. At the University of Chicago, he founded the Laboratory School. But Dewey would likely have disagreed with many current practices in American education, like the wide use of standardized testing. Larry Hickman said Dewey thought that testing had its place, but that testing should be more like medical tests. They should be testing for individual needs, interests, and abilities, and not to compare one student to another. John Dewey died in 1952. But Dewey scholar Larry Hickman says his ideas are still being taught in education schools. And that's the VOA Special English Education Report.
This is the VOA Special English Education Report. India was once a colony in the British Empire, but now Indian tutors are helping to teach math to some British children over high-speed internet connections. Early results suggest that online tutoring may improve student performance. But not everyone is happy at this so-called outsourcing of tutors. Students at Raynham Primary School in London gather at 3:30 for their after-school math lessons. 5 time zones and thousands of kilometers away, their math tutors are also arriving for class. Each pupil gets an individual online tutor. The students work with activities on their computer screen and wear a headset and microphone to talk to their tutor. Their classroom teacher, Altis Basson, says he has seen an improvement in results. Children who struggle to focus in class focus a lot better on the laptops, he says. 9-year-old Samia Abdul Qadir says she enjoys the online lessons. It helps me because sometimes when we're doing it in class, I don't hear the teacher very much and I don't understand, but online is better, she says. Her friend, Abdul Fadil Badouri, agrees. He says online you can hear it. It's not shared by everyone. Everyone has different topics they are learning. Tom Hooper started the company that provides the online tutoring. The company is called Bright Spark Education. He says, children today feel very confident online. They feel very engaged. They feel very in control. And that's half the battle with education. Give them control, make them feel confident and enjoy their learning, and you'll see them start to improve and embrace it. Online tutoring costs between $20 and $25 an hour. An online tutor is about half the cost of traditional face-to-face coaching. But some people say an internet connection is not enough of a connection for teaching and learning. Kevin Courtney is Deputy General Secretary of Britain's National Union of Teachers. He says there's a really important emotional connection between a teacher and a child, whether it's a whole class or whether it's one-to-one. You need that immediacy of feedback, and we're not convinced that that can happen across an internet connection. In one of the wealthiest countries in the world, we think that we can afford to have teachers with the genuine emotional connection there with the children. Bright Spark Education says the online tutoring is used only as an addition to supplement regular teaching. The company says its service does not represent a threat to teachers' jobs in Britain. Some parents say they are satisfied with the results. And what about the children? Some say they love it, but at least one declared, "I hate maths." So math, or maths as the British call it, is still not everyone's favorite subject, even with the latest technology to teach it. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. You can watch a video of the online tutoring by going to voaspecialenglish.com. You can also find English teaching activities, plus MP3s, podcasts, and transcripts of our programs.